We got a dozen games on the MLB betting slate on Monday, but which of these games can we be betting on? That's what you're here to find out. We're going to start off talking about the Bravos against the Giants, the Twins taking on the Royals, the Yankees, and White Sox. And then we got best bets coming your way in Houston versus Tampa Bay and the Cubs versus the Guardians. That's all coming up here on WagerTalk's First Pitch. I'm Dan Alexander, and joining me, I got Drew Martin and Adam Trigger ready to rock. Another week of shows coming your way here, getting you ready to bet the diamond. Drew, let's kick it off with you since you've already been up and at 'em, dropping the daily diamond for the folks that they can find here on the Wager Talk TV YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. You'll never miss that when that's going live. Atlanta against the Giants. Man, I should have given people a trigger warning, Drew, that we were going to talk Braves at the top here in case they bet them last night and they fell to that 7 runs that came across in the 8th. Talk about a brutal bad beat. But good news for would-be Braves backers, they get to see Chris Sale and the amazing season he's put together on the mound here as they're opening up a 4-game set in San Francisco. Drew, welcome in, buddy. And how are we looking to bet this one?
Dan, always good to be on with you, man. Thanks for having me. And I'll tell you, yeah, I was watching that game. I was actually flying from Mexico to the U.S., watching it on the plane, and I was going against the Braves. So I love seeing that Rockies 8th inning. But I'll tell you in this one, man, you bring up the fact Chris Sale on the hill. I mean, where would the Braves be if they didn't have Chris Sale in this rotation? It would be real ugly. So I'm not necessarily looking to back the Braves. I mean, you bring up, just yesterday's game, they dropped 2 of 3 to the Rocks. They've actually lost 7 of the last 8. It's normally not a situation that I look to bet on a team. But when you got a pitcher like Chris Sale, big, tall, lefty, throwing hard, it's like really tough to prepare to go up against him. You can see why he's so successful, in his career overall and this season. I mean, he's got a 2.7 ERA, a 2.3 FIP. I'm not looking to go against him by any means, Dan. He's got 165 strikeouts. He actually went up against the Giants earlier on July 3rd. It was. He went 6 innings, just 3 hits given up, 1 earned, 9 strikeouts. So that's great pass performance against the current lineup he's going to be facing. Now he is up against Blake Snell here. Just 2 starts ago, the no-hitter against the Reds. He's not necessarily a guy I'm looking to go against, at least in his current form. But overall, I'll take Chris Sale over Blake Snell. And, look for the Braves to kind of bounce back here on this West Coast road trip. So we need something late night, big game breakdown, likely a lot of tickets written on it. How about the Braves plus 100 bounce back form? And you don't got to lay any big here. So Sale as the starter. But I'm jumping on the Braves in this one late night.
Yeah, it's a late night game, but not really we call the D-Gen special. That's when we got the 2 ugly teams playing late night. This is actually a pretty damn good matchup. And where would the Braves be without Chris Sale? Around like 48 wins? Because he's picked up a baker's dozen for him with 13 wins for Chris Sale. But yeah, insane season they're putting together. Drew saying back him in the bounce back spot here on a Monday, and largely back him thanks to Chris Sale, some even money to do so. That's Drew Martin, WT.buzz/DM. Also with us, Adam Trigger. And yes, folks, longtime listeners, I do have the bell, but we all have to admit Trig's gotten a lot better with his breakdown since being threatened with the bell shutting him down. Trig, you want to talk Twins and Royals? This is a pretty big AL Central matchup, I would say. It's opening up here in Minneapolis tonight. For the Twins, not only are they looking to open up a series and stay, in this second place spot, they're trying to snap a 2-game skid. What do you think? Can they potentially do that here as they're facing off against the Royals here tonight? How are you looking to bet this one, Trig?
Yeah, Dan, the fear of getting scolded by Kelly Stewart will do that to you. We'll get you in the check real quick. But yeah, this is a huge series in the AL Central, and big for reasons like I think like these 2 teams are battling for second right now. And I think one of these teams is going to win this division. And I'll get more into that later, when we talk about best bets. But I really do think that these 2 teams are the teams to beat in this division. I'm not sure which one is going to overtake the Guardians, but one of them will at some point. I'll tell you what, the Twins, big time missed opportunity over the weekend. They held serve by splitting with the Guardians, but they swept that doubleheader on Friday, and then 2 close losses, to give those 2 back. So they didn't lose any ground, but they didn't gain any in a situation where you couldn't have asked for a better spot for the Twins to gain ground, having Saturday and Sunday at home. And much to my dismay, I was on the Twins yesterday, and it was just missed opportunities, which was really kind of the story of the last 2 days for the Twins. Specifically yesterday, bases loaded in the 9th inning, no outs in a 5-3 game, went strikeout, and then a rocket that ended up into a double play for a 5-3 loss, which is now their 4th loss in the last 6 games. And they've kind of gone, the Twins, that is, have kind of just gone cold at inopportune times, like within the games. 5 for 37 the last 6 games with runners in scoring position, just 19 runs scored. And, that's, it's a game of inches, right? And getting the, Larnach smokes a grounder that easily ties that game in the 9th. If it's a foot either direction, but it was hit right at Jimenez, and they were able to turn it for a double play, ends up being a loss. But I think the Twins have reason to be optimistic going into this series for a couple of reasons. One, they're 5-2 against the Royals this season, and I still think the Twins have more of a pedigree of winning. As we start, we talked about the Royals last week, and I'm a little bit concerned as they get into these big sort of like, playoff-esque games as we go into August and eventually into September. These are the type of games the Twins have been winning for years. And like I said, they're 5-2, against the Royals this season. I think that bodes well for them here. Something that the Twins I've noticed has been a real issue for them is middle relief. They just don't have bullpen guys in the middle of a game. So when you have a scenario like yesterday where David Festa leaves because he gets in trouble in the 4th inning, they haven't figured out how to piece together those innings to get the ball to Griffin Jax and Johan out. But I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue here because Pablo Lopez, even though he's not someone I'm typically dying to back as a starter, I think he's a little bit overrated in the market as a starting pitcher. He will give you 5 or 6 innings in most of his starts. And, because Jax and Duran never got into the game yesterday, if you get 5 or 6 out of Lopez, they're going to be in a good situation to get the ball to their top relievers to potentially close out this game. Now, another thing that's working in their favor today, Dan, is the fact that Lopez has great numbers against the Royals. Current Royals lineup against Pablo Lopez, 185 batting average and a 569 OPS, which is awful. His ERA against the Royals in his career is 2.41, and he had a great start against them earlier this season, so that certainly favors him. On the other side, you've got Brady Singer, who has been a guy that I've looked to play against this year, and incorrectly. He's the one guy in the Royals rotation that I kind of have picked out as a fade, and he's done nothing but have a career year to this point. Now, his expected ERA is one of the biggest he's got one of the biggest differences in the league from actual ERA to expected ERA. It's one of the signs that we kind of would use to predict potential regression. And the reason I think it could potentially happen here is he's almost the polar opposite of Lopez, where everyone on the Twins has great numbers against him. The Twins are batting .295 collectively against Singer with a .905 OPS, and his career ERA versus the Twins is 5.18. Like I said, because they lost yesterday and never had the lead, they didn't use Jax or Duran. The Twins are going to call up Zebby Matthews today, who's one of their top prospects. I'd love to see them use him in the middle relief role. I think he'd be a great bridge guy from the starters to those top relievers. But the point is they're doing something to address the middle relief. I think the Twins will eventually hit with runners in scoring position now that they've got Royce Lewis back, Jose Miranda, Byron Buxton had a great game yesterday. So I think you're going to see the Twins bounce back from those couple losses over the weekend, and I won't be surprised at all if that starts tonight with a Twins win.
Twins bounce back spot. You could argue maybe it's factored in with the pricing here, but Trigg says, don't you worry about it. Twins bouncing back tonight. That's the big game breakdowns for the guys. We also have a great deal going on over at WagerTalk that we'll tell you about a little bit later. But while you're hanging out with us, hit that like button, subscribe. You hit that little bell. You'll get notified when we go live. If you're watching us on social, that follow button goes a long way. Drew and Trig, we're going to talk to you guys both about this Yankees and White Sox game because Trig is the White Sox plus 1.5 official card holder, even with their 91 losses. But I want to start with you, Drew, because I would argue probably one of the most popular bets tonight is going to be maybe one of the best bet or worst bets on the board, simply because you could ask Aaron Judge to get a homer. You only get plus 160 around that to do it. He's going for number 300 tonight as they're taking on the White Sox. And when you're playing the White Sox, you're like, oh my God, he's looking for some potential history here. It seems too easy to just take him. But man, there has to be a better way to bet this game, right? Yankees, White Sox, even with a minus 340 money line, like, is there any way to even attack this game for you? What do you think, Drew?
Dan, I like your intro. That's amazing. I mean, I'm not too much into the home run props, but I mean, to only get that big, that
plus 160
little of a plus price on a single player to hit a home run, that's really speaking to the form he's in, man. To tell you the truth, Dan, I would probably defer to Trig on this one, just to his read on the White Sox. It's always interesting to hear him talk about it. But I did look at this game briefly. I'm not into laying 300. And even looking at the run line, because I was looking to get on the Yankees, to be fully transparent here. You're having to lay the big price on the run line as well. So I guess if you're a gambler here, maybe a little bit degenerate special feel, how about one of those like alt run lines, like minus 2.5, minus 3.5? That's the way I would go. Maybe the Yankees in absolute blowout fashion, Dan.
Yeah, let's see what we have to do here. Alt run line. Even if you lay over on the Green Book, DraftKings, Drew, lay 3 runs. How about minus 106? So you're still not getting plus money laying 3 runs. So this, Trig, is an interesting game to talk about simply because of the pricing that you're seeing here. Minus 340, minus 192 on the run line. If you look at Yankees alternate total runs, you have to go all the way up to 6.5 runs until you get plus 120. Over 4.5, minus 210. I mean, if there's anyone that could talk us into value here, I mean, Chicago Whites, they're saying this game is already over and it hasn't played with the odds. So if you could potentially, could you even talk us into it a minus 340 spot for the opposing side, a Chicago White Sox play? Because if anyone could be pro White Sox, it's you, Trig.
Listen, I got to read a DM that I got from someone that watches this show. So shout out Aaron Pauling. I don't know if you're watching today. But he DM'd me on Saturday night, and I'm going to read it. I'm sure he's going to be fine with it because it was a great bet by him. He said, Trig, not saying you endorsed this, but you got me betting the White Sox today, plus 2.5, minus 125. Absolutely disgusting, but it came through. He means it. White Sox lost. When I placed it, I said to myself, this one's for Trigger. That's why we're here. We're just trying to give out good info that leads you to a win. Aaron took advantage of the other side of that alternate market and got himself a winner on Saturday night in that game against the Cubs. Like I said, it was a 3-1 final, so it was plus 2.5 cash. And just based on the fact that you have the wild card here that is Kai Busch in just his second big league start, the only way I could play this would be to go, to take the alternate run line for the White Sox. Whatever you said it was, Dan, you're probably looking at plus 2.5 most places, but if you get a plus 3, that's fine. And play the White Sox that way because you have Kai Busch on the mound. He's a top prospect. He's one of the top pitching prospects in Major League Baseball right now. I bet on his debut, which is part of that Oakland A's series. Of course, the White Sox end up breaking their losing streak the next day. But Kai Busch didn't pitch bad in that game. He only gave up 1 or 2 hits. It was really just, I think, nerves, and he walked a couple of guys in those first couple innings trying to nibble. So that theoretically could happen here as well. But it wasn't like he was giving up a ton of hard contact. It's not like anyone on this Yankees lineup has seen him, and he has very good stuff. So am I going to bet this? No, I'm not going to have $1 on this, but I just don't think you lay minus 350 or 340 or whatever it is against a kid that has the upside of being a frontline starter in this league, right? Like that's where Kai Busch was drafted. That's where he's rated in terms of prospects right now. He flew through the, he was in Double-A. He was awesome at Double-A. Not great at Triple-A, but he also didn't have much time there, so very small sample size. But my gut tells me he's going to be really good, and I would not play against him. So it would have to be White Sox with whatever runs they're going to give you. Maybe it's the 2.5, maybe it's the 3, or pass. That's how I see it.
Yeah, you look at the alt run line. If you look at 2.5, you're minus 101 for the Chicago White Sox. You get the 3 runs minus 123. So some thoughts there on just a insanely ugly priced game. Guys, let's just real quick touch upon another game that's pretty damn ugly. And we talked about, Drew, with you, that comeback by the Rockies. They'll face off against the Diamondbacks, who gave my Phils all kinds of problems here over the weekend. We were talking about the Phils being back on Friday, and then life happened, and then the D-backs happened. Rockies and Diamondbacks, because we got people here in the chat talking about parlay pieces, right? Yankees minus 340. So, people love these big money line favorites. If you parlayed these two money lines together, you'd still have minus 139. So betting baseball, I know some people love the big money line favorite parlays. I think that's a quick way to go broke betting MLB action. But any thoughts here on Rockies and D-Box? It's Contrail versus Fott in this one.
Dan, the way to bet the Rocks is at home at Coors Field. I mean, they're 5 games under
Great
500.
point.
When you look at their overall record, they're 44-75 and only 5 games under 500 at home. Well, that leads us into their road record, Dan, 17-43 outside of Coors Field. This is not the situation you want to be jumping on those plus prices with the Rocks. They're a team I look to bet on at home. I look to fade them on the road. It's just, I think they're going to struggle here. But at the same time, it goes back to what we talked about with the Yankees. It's that same profile. It's just too pricey in the sport of baseball, at least for my blood, man. So I didn't spend too much time on it. But hey, if you're a gambler, the parlay pieces, have at it. But like you said, I think long term, you're likely to go broke doing that.
All right, Trig, we talked enough. I mean, obviously you can add some thoughts on that, but we talked enough about ugly prices and basically unbettable games. Great game here that Arias wants us to chat about, and shout out to the chat. Appreciate you tuning in, boss. 429 Chuck Pod, Arias, RU Zen, Scratch Master, all of you. We appreciate you. Hit that like button while you're hanging out. But Arias wants to talk Brewers and Dodgers, Kershaw versus Peralta. We talked 2 ugly games there, Trig. This is one that's pretty damn intriguing. How would you potentially bet this one?
Yeah, this is an interesting game, and it was kind of a quick throw out for me for a couple of reasons. One, because I think we're going to get the Justin Verlander effect now going forward with Clayton Kershaw, where he's going to have to pay for the name. So it's like Kershaw can show up on a given day. Like even now with his stuff isn't going to overpower anyone, and that's certainly what we've seen since he's come back. But on a given day, he's still an elite pitcher. So, there's going to be times where he shows up, throws a gem, but he doesn't have the stuff that matches where the market will continue to price him. So it's going to be really tough to find good value to bet, to back him. The Brewers are not as good against left-handed pitching, so I suppose that could be your in here. But I don't really want to bet against the Brewers because, kind of like Drew said with the Rockies, where you want to kind of get them when they're at home. The Brewers' home splits are a lot better than their road splits this year as well. So, not really looking to fade the Brewers at home. I still like what this Milwaukee team does. Like overall, I still think they play very good baseball, and they're still. The Dodgers still have to get some guys back in the mix. They still have to they got to get Walker Buehler back up. They have to get, out of this, just running out these, what I call 4A players very often, Dan, where like a lot of their pitching rotation are guys that, could probably still be in AAA or they're like back end guys. And that's never but the Dodgers are always going to be priced as the Dodgers. You're always going to pay for the name. So it's made it really difficult to do anything other than fade the Dodgers right now. I think I'd lean to, when Peralta's on, he can be really good. So I think I'd have to lean the slightest of leans towards Milwaukee, but not something that's going to come close to making my card.
Drew, I know you're much more into the sides, but any thoughts on potential run production in that one in Dodgers and Brewers? We got Jared over on TikTok. Appreciate you tuning in. He's saying over on Brewers. It's looking like we got 8s pretty much across the board in that one. Any thoughts on a team total? Any potential bets there for you?
Dan, I guess it would correlate with the way I'm actually betting this game. I mean, totals wise, I would look towards the Brewers to the over. But I got a 3-pack up now for the clients at WagerTalk, and this is one of them, Dan. And I'm on the Brewers here at home. Trig just talked about them, playing well in Milwaukee. They've won 5 of their last 6. They're 11 games over 500 at home. First place NL Central, 17 games over 500. I mean, the Dodgers are now 20 games over 500 after the sweep against the Pirates. I mean, this NL West standings towards the end of the season, this is going to be a great run to kind of watch all of these teams in that division. But Trick touched on some of this, and I feel like you are having to pay a tax, particularly when Kershaw is on the hill with the Dodgers. I mean, they lost the last 2 times out he took the bump. I mean, in his 3 starts, he's really only going 3, maybe 4 innings. So he's got 12 innings pitched this season, 17 hits, 10 runs. He's throwing 89 miles per hour. I'm looking, fade city on Kershaw until further notice, my man. I mean, I like Freddie Peralta, 155 strikeouts on the season. I think this is a little bit mispriced here. We get a bullpen edge as well towards the Brew Crew. I'm listing Freddie Peralta and pick 'em price tag. I'm on the Brewers tonight, Dan.
And I want to add one more thing.
I
want to add one more thing with that one, because I should have pointed this out earlier. It looks like Mookie Betts will be back tonight. Does not really matter for this game, but yet people will bet it. You'll almost in 4 hours you'll probably get 10 cents better on the Brewers, just because it starts to make the rounds that he's back. Long term, that absolutely matters. Him playing his first game since June does not change the price for this game. I don't care who it is. It could be Ted Williams stepping in there after 4 months of not playing and having to face a right-handed pitcher like Freddie Peralta is not an easy task. So I don't really bump the Dodgers today because of that. A week from now, it's going to matter, but I don't think it matters tonight. So if you start to see the Dodgers take money, I'd punch back at the market there, because you'll probably end up with a plus price at the Brewers as the day goes on. That's the case.
Yeah, and that's a great tip right there. You maybe wait here a little bit to be betting that game, but you got some thoughts from the guys here as we keep on rolling, folks. Best bets are coming your way. We're going to talk Cubs and Guardians, going to talk Houston and Tampa Bay. Have a couple questions to get to, and we'll hit on a few more games here before we get there. But first, Drew was talking about how he has that 3-pack up, giving you a free client play. Sure, you can also grab that 3-pack, but why not grab 7 days for the price of 3? A special loaded at all of our cappers pages over at WagerTalk.com. More details at WT.buzz/deals. But 7 days for the price of 3. That includes any 5% that these guys release and NFL preseason plays. You're getting all access. So whatever the gentlemen are releasing, you can grab that. For the price of 3 days, get 7 days of access, basically getting 4 days free. Again, more details loaded at these guys' pages. I'm glad you mentioned Mookie Betts coming back and how a player coming back, could potentially affect the line, not affect the line, because I think even more so when you're talking about pitchers who are returning off a big layover, that automatically is going to be getting priced into a bet. And that is what we're seeing in the San Diego Padres and the Pittsburgh Pirates. This game at 9:40 over on the East Coast. This one taking place in San Diego. It's Joe Musgrove who's going to be returning to the mound for the Padres. He hasn't seen action since May 26th right elbow inflammation was what kept him out. But Musgrove going to be back on the mound. And maybe the Pirates are happy they're getting the guy a little bit rusty, because Drew, it wasn't ancient history when people were talking about the Pirates pushing for a wild card spot, talking playoffs with them, and then 7 straight losses for this Pirates team. They need a win in the worst way. So maybe they're hoping some rest versus rust is going to be all about the rust for that right elbow of Joe Musgrove tonight. They're opposing with the lefty Gonzalez. Any thoughts here on a late night 9:40 game between the Pirates and the Padres?
You know, Dan, I always think it's a little bit tricky betting pitchers when they first come back. And to tell you the truth, I usually, particularly with these big name pitchers like Musgrove, like Kershaw, I look to go against them because of that tax we talked about last time. I mean, I'm still seeing undecided here for the Pittsburgh starting pitchers. And that's kind of a big deal with this team, particularly with their frontline starters. I'll tell you this, Dan, it's not one that made my card, but I do have Pittsburgh circled at a big plus price, looking to kind of fade Musgrove. Yep. And it would kind of correlate with maybe, team total, first inning run, things of that nature on the Pirates. That's the way I'm kind of leaning in this one, but I haven't fired away yet. I'm still seeing undecided for their starting pitcher. And I also want to say with what Trig said, players returning and how you kind of led in here with Mookie Betts coming back for the Dodgers. I totally agree with what he's talking about in terms of them getting some money if he is in the lineup. But when I research it, I don't believe he had any rehab starts or rehab in the minor leagues. So like when he's playing in this game, this is going to be his first game. That's something I like to do. And I feel like it can be advantageous for a sports bettor to go look in and see how these pitchers are doing in the minors, the hitters as well, and kind of factor that into the handicap as well. But when a guy doesn't have any minor league kind of playing time and hasn't played for months, that's actually kind of a fade, just because I find it very tough for athletes to come back on that first game.
Yeah, and Trig, for you, and again, we think that Gonzalez could be the pitcher, but again, that hasn't been confirmed by the club. All odds screens still showing undecided for the Pittsburgh pitcher. But Trig, you talked about how Mookie Betts being back and that trickling out could affect the line in that Dodgers game. I mean, unless you're getting Skeen's name popping up on the screen, I don't think any starting pitcher is going to change the price that much in this one. So if you are looking to get that plus money price on the Pirates, would you grab that now? Would you want to wait until you at least know who the pitcher is? Because the part of the equation that we know is Musgrove hasn't pitched since May, and he's making his first start here. So that's the part that we know. Any thoughts on grabbing that plus price, waiting a little bit, or would you bet this game a completely different way?
I'm like 95% sure it's going to be Marco Gonzalez, who I want no part of. So no plus price on the Pirates. Me, the Pirates knocked him around 7 days ago, and he's not. He's been doing the same thing in this league for 10 years, so he's not going to change anything. So the Padres should get exactly what they saw last week and had no problem hitting with him. I expect the Padres to score runs. I wouldn't be surprised if the Pirates did score a little bit or at least had their chances. Now, Musgrove did make a rehab start. He threw the ball, hit good fastball velo in his rehab start, and he talked about, and you got to take it with a grain of salt. A lot of these guys will always talk about how they felt good, blah, 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 but his fastball was really good. I think it hit 96, 97. That being said, he's probably only going to throw 50 to 60 pitches in this game. The thing I remember, Musgrove's rushed back a couple times from other injuries and gotten absolutely blown up. The one that comes to mind, and Drew might remember this, I think he came back from injury to pitch in Mexico last year and gave up like 100 runs in like 2 innings. It was awful. He's always been a guy that I feel like has to be comfortable, has to be in a good groove. So Joe Musgrove, not someone I'm trying to back off of a long layoff like this, would have to take the over. It would be over or pass. I wouldn't want the Pirates, and I'm certainly not going to lay a price with the Padres with the uncertainty. So I would just bank on some runs or find a different game.
Hearing these guys talk, I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. Yurfie First inning. Yes, run first inning. Minus 115. Why not? If we think runs are coming, let's ask them to get pieced up early in this game. If it is indeed Gonzalez, I think I even like that a little bit more. So I'm going Yurfie. There you go. Yes, run first inning. I know you guys like these no run first inning. Yes, run first inning. We got to play there for you here in these gentlemen talk. You have to. You got to go with it. It's a fun bet, and right out of the gate, could potentially be getting a run across. Best bets coming up. We'll touch upon one more game before that. Cardinals and Reds. Our man Arias has all the questions here today. You can ask him as well there in the comments, whether you're chiming in on TikTok, Instagram, X, or the Old Faithful over on the YouTube channel. All we ask you to do, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed or you're following us on those social channels. Drew, this one 6:40 tonight. It's a NL wild card game that has some pretty big implications here as the Reds are looking to maybe make up a little bit of ground as they host the Cardinals. Sonny Gray is who they're going to have to hit to do it, though, opposing Abbott. Any thoughts in this Cards and Reds matchup for you?
Yeah, Dan, big one for sure, kind of under the radar. Andrew Abbott, the second rounder out of Virginia, he's actually a guy I looked to bet on. He changes speeds well, coming from the left side, good changeup. The problem is, for whatever reason, the Cardinals, like his arsenal, they've hit him pretty well. Being in this division and seeing him a bunch, he went up against the Cardinals, the end of May, and gave up 6 earned in 6 innings. So that past performance kind of kept me off of betting on Andrew Abbott in this matchup. Plus the fact last time out, I bet on him and the Marlins actually knocked him around. So I'm going to lay off of the Reds at the plus price. That's the way I looked at it. So I guess it's kind of actually leading me into if you needed something, I would be on the Redbirds and lay the price listing Sonny Gray, Dan.
That's true. Martin, WT.buzz/DM. Trig, you can give any closing thoughts on that one. And also let us know why people should partner with you with that 4 days free special that we have over at your page, WT.buzz/AT. And let us know also what you got for a best bet here tonight on the card for the folks here tuning in live.
Yeah, so the 4-day special is great. It's going to get you NFL preseason. My last 11 NFL preseason plays dating back to last season, I'm 8-3, and I expect to win again this week. So that'll cover at least the early portion of the week. MLB has been really good, and you can actually thank my sister for giving birth, since I now have a new nephew who I'm visiting today. As you can see in my backdrop here, this is not my normal setup, and so rather than spend time writing the play up, I'm going to go hang with my new nephew for a little bit before I have to go back home. And I'm going to give you the 4% play for free. Now, there is going to be a Korean baseball play that goes in the morning that I'm going to put up for sale. I'm on a really nice win streak in Korean baseball. But you're going to get the MLB one for free today. And that is the Chicago Cubs. Dan, they're finally coming around for me. I had to take I've been taking grenades from the chat on the Cubs ever since the beginning of the season. When I said they were going to win the Central, when I told people to bet them every which way to make the playoffs, and it looked like their season was over. But here they are back from the dead. They've won 8 of 10, and a win today would give them 5 in a row, and it would also put them at 500 for the first time since June, early June, I believe. They could actually get back to the 500 mark, and they are very much alive and in the mix in the NL wildcard race, which no one really seems to want to take over at this point. So they're 20-12 since July 4th. It's the 3rd best record in the league in that span. And since the 4th of July, their 2.98 team ERA is the lowest. It's the best in the league. The big reason for that is tonight's starter, Shota Imanaga. Sorry, tripped over that. He's been their best starting pitcher. He's last week 10 strikeouts and a win over the Twins. And really, if you throw out that one hiccup he had, in early May, got blown up by the Mets, had a couple of bad starts where if you listen to his post-game interviews, he talked about timing being off. It caused a little bit of a velocity dip with his fastball. And it was really sort of, all at once where he just was a little out of whack. If you throw out that little patch, he's been far and away the Cubs' best starter. and one of the better starters in the National League. His strikeout to walk ratio leads the NL right now. And so that's really important because the way to get to Imanaga is to hit the home run. He will give up home runs, but he doesn't put a ton of traffic on the bases. And so, the damage is typically so low that he gives up. And he works around them. And it's a big reason, Dan, that the Cubs are 17-4 when he takes the rubber this year. So he's been far and away the best, the most profitable pitcher that the Cubs have. Because if you look at the Cubs record and you take out 17-4 from a team that's, only a game under 500, the other starting pitchers have not come close to what Imanaga has done for them. If this was Teddy hosting the show, he'd probably bring up, well, what are they going to do? The Guardians are great against left-handed pitching. So what do you think about that? And I would say, well, they've never seen Imanaga. So that's like the offsetting factor to me, Dan, is the fact that they're going to be seeing him for the first time. I think that's enough to keep them off balance because the Guardians do have great numbers against left-handed pitching, but they're getting a new one here and one that's a little bit, he's got a different arsenal than your typical lefty, coming from his time in Japan and just the way that they, pitch over there and attack hitters a little bit differently. I think it's going to keep the Guardians off balance here. On the other side, I'm going to go against Ben Lively again. So I talked about this last week on the show. I had a best bet on the Diamondbacks. It was a play against Lively. He gave up 4 runs in 5 innings, and Arizona won that game. Reason I want to play against him, I think he's a bit of a regression candidate. I watched this guy for 3 years in Korea. Last year with the Reds, coming into this, he's 32 years old, and coming into this season, his career MLB ERA was over 5. He's had a fantastic season, but this is a guy that relies big time on command. Doesn't have overpowering stuff. He needs to hit the corners to have success and keep hitters off balance. And I think that we're getting to the point in the season where in the dog days of August, guys are going to start to fatigue. And the first thing that really goes when you're fatigued is your command and the ability to just pinpoint that ball in the corners. Lively has 0 room for error, in my opinion. And the Cubs are seeing the ball well right now. They're hitting 59 runs, Dan, in their last 10 games on that 8-2 run, almost 6 runs per game. So I think they can get some runs off Lively here. And potentially continue that regression that the Diamondbacks started for him last week. At the back end of this, Emmanuel Clase probably isn't going to pitch tonight. I complained about my Twins loss yesterday in the open, and I'll bring it up again. Clase was awful yesterday. He loads the bases, gets into a full count, somehow paints a 3-2 strike to Castro that he actually foul tipped and his catcher held on to get an out, and then gives up a 100-mile-an-hour rocket at his second baseman to get a double play to get out of bases loaded, no outs. That's now his second straight day. I don't think he's pitching here, and if he does, bring it on. I'd love to face him for a third straight day after that shaky outing. And then you've got the Guardians' bullpen in general, which has regressed. And even before Clase, Twins back in it with a 2-run homer to Buxton. This has been going on for a couple weeks now. The Guardians have been the best bullpen in Major League Baseball this year, but that was up until 2 weeks ago. The last couple weeks, it's been awful. Their ERA has been over 5 as a team. I believe in August, their ERA is over 5 as a team. So Cubs just playing better ball right now. Guardians still have all sorts of regression metrics. Prior to their 2 wins this weekend, they had 7 straight losses. I don't think that's a fluke. I told you at the open, one of those 2 teams, Royals or Twins, is going to catch this Guardians team, and one of them is going to take another step closer tonight because the Cubs are going to win this game, and that's my 4% best bet for Monday.
Boom. Uncle Trig going with the Cubs. And Trig, if the nephew won't go down, he's being a little bit fussy, just we'll ask your sister to just play that breakdown, and there'll be no problem. The baby will go right to bed. No lullabies. No, I'm messing with you. Hell of a breakdown there.
He's you inherited another Philly fan because we're about 15 minutes away
Smart.
from Citizens Bank Park right now. So
raise them right.
There you go.
Raise them right. That's a smart family right there. But we're going with the Cubs money line over the Guardians. That's the best bet. For Uncle Trig, give him a shout out in the chat below. For you, Drew, let folks know you already gave away one of the plays in the 3-pack for the folks. We appreciate you doing that, of course, and that's why folks tune in live. You got another best bet for them. But with that great deal, 3 days, you get 7 days of all access for the price of 3. 4 days essentially free. It's a great time to partner with you. How are we betting Houston and Tampa Bay, and what do you have locked and loaded over at your page?
Sure, Dan. Yeah, got that 3-pack up for tonight. It's been a nice run here on the diamond, really for a couple months now, but particularly recently, 3 of the last 4 days, nailing some big underdogs. So if you like some plus prices, jump on that, take advantage. Why not? 7 days for the price of 3. But 4 best bet for the show here, Dan. 6:50 Eastern, St. Petersburg, Florida. First game up on the card, Taj Bradley and Framber Valdez. It's the Houston Astros at the Tampa Bay Rays. 7 in the hook being the total. We get the Astros minus 122 here, Dan, and I think this number's short. They've won 5 straight. They scored 33 runs, sweeping the Boston Red Sox, playing really good baseball. Some important games here for the Astros. They're now tied at the top of the AL West standings there with the Seattle Mariners. They've won 3 straight times. Framber Valdez has been on the hill. He went 8 2/3 last time out, just 1 hit against the Texas Rangers. He's riding a hot left hand. Love betting on that. And Taj Bradley for the Rays. He's a guy I was betting on earlier in the season, but he's kind of faltered of recent. 15 hits, 9 earned runs his last 2 starts. Just 3 1/3, 5 earned, 4 walks last time facing the Houston Astros. So he struggled here against them. Overall, Dan, I think the Astros minus 122. I think they get this done and they keep this win streak rolling. So ride the hot, fade the cold here. We're on the Astros over the Rays to start off the Monday slate.
Astros taking on the Rays. That's the best bets for the guys. Hop below in the comments. Let us know what your best bets are here today. To recap it, it's Framber Valdez and the Astros against the Rays for our man Drew Martin. Trig going with the Cubs and Guardians. We appreciate you tuning in here. Another edition of First Pitch coming to a close. On the way out, hit that like button, subscribe. The little bell on YouTube will give you notifications. And if you're following us on social media, or if you're watching us on social media, rather, make sure you hit that follow button. Share it into your timeline, and your friends will see it as well. They can hit the follow button and keep getting that info you know and you love. Just about 15 minutes from now, Wager Talk Today coming your way. Drew Martin playing a double header. A triple header, as he's going to be on the opening line report following Wager Talk Today. But Drew Martin going to be talking MLB. Brian Power talking some NFL preseason action, as well as some MLB. And Brian Leonard, who was in the chat here with us, he's going to be on Wager Talk Today as well, alongside Teddy Covers and the Prez. So don't go anywhere. It's coming up 15 minutes from now right here on the Wager Talk TV YouTube channel and social media channels. Best of luck, everyone. See you back here Tuesday morning, 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, for another edition of First Pitch. Until then, best of luck.